On my 50th birthday, I came home expecting a surprise from my family, but instead I found silence, an empty house, and a truth that shattered everything I thought I knew. I'm Norman, 50 years old, male, and until a few months ago, I thought my life was ordinary in that safe, dull kind of way people call stable. I had a steady job in civil maintenance, a wife named Willow, and two kids I was stupidly proud of. Thomas, 23, and Piper, 20. We weren't rich, but we were solid, reliable. That's what I was known for, the reliable one. The guy who never forgot to pay the bills, who worked weekends if someone called in sick, who showed up even when he was bone tired. For weeks leading up to my 50th, Willow had been acting secretive, whispering on the phone, closing her laptop when I walked into the room. The kids, too, dropping hints like, "Dad, this birthday is gonna blow your mind," and "You'll finally get the break you deserve." I laughed it off, thinking maybe they'd booked a cabin weekend or something small. We weren't the kind of family who splurged, or at least I thought we weren't. The morning of my birthday, my boss called. Emergency at the Riverside site, water main burst. I told Willow I'd be home by dinner. She said distractedly, "That actually works out fine." At the time, I thought nothing of it. I worked 12 hours that day, missed lunch, got soaked in cold rain, and drove home feeling both exhausted and excited. I even stopped to grab a bottle of decent whiskey, something I never did because I figured, hell, I made it to 50, that deserves a toast. But when I got home, the house was dark, dead silent, no balloons, no smell of dinner, no voices. I walked through every room calling out their names. The only sound was the hum of the fridge. No note, no message, no sign anyone had been there. I checked my phone. Nothing. At first I thought maybe they'd gone out to pick up food. I waited. 1 hour, two. By the third, I was sitting at the kitchen table staring at the unopened whiskey bottle, trying not to feel that rising panic in my throat. When I finally opened Instagram, the world went sideways. There they were. My wife, my kids, my in-laws, all smiling in the sun, on some white sand beach, drinks in hand. Caption: Family vacation mode activated. He won't even notice we're gone, lol. My son's post. My wife's laughing emoji underneath it. My daughter, sunglasses on, looking like she was having the time of her life. I didn't comment. I didn't call. I just stared. Every photo, every timestamp was another punch. 3 days at a luxury resort, on my birthday, my milestone, my family, the people I'd spent 25 years breaking my back for, had left me behind on purpose. I remember thinking, with this sick calm, they really think I won't notice. That was the night something in me cracked. But not in the way you'd expect. I didn't throw things. I didn't scream. I opened my laptop and started documenting everything. Screenshots, bank transactions, their lies, their laughter, their betrayal, line by line. Because when a man like me finally decides he's done being invisible, he doesn't explode. He plans. I barely slept that night. The house felt haunted, by laughter that wasn't there, by the ghost of the life I thought I had. Every creak sounded like footsteps. Every car passing outside made me look up, half expecting them to walk in, shouting surprise. But the truth sat heavy in my gut. There was no surprise, no misunderstanding. They'd left me behind, on purpose. By morning, I wasn't even angry yet, just hollow. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and started digging. First, the joint savings account, $4,000 withdrawn 3 days earlier. Same amount I'd just given Thomas for his apartment down payment. My stomach dropped. Then I checked the credit cards. That's when I found the one I didn't know about, an account under Willow's name, linked to her email. 113,000 in debt. Designer stores, spa packages, fancy restaurants. And now, charges from the very resort they were at. That was the first spark of heat in my chest. Not rage, not yet. Just a low, controlled fire. I took screenshots of every page, every transaction. I saved them in a folder I titled Reality Check. Around 10 a.m., I opened social media. Again, more beach photos. Willow and her mother, Kinsley, in sun hats, sipping cocktails. My kids grinning behind them. The caption from Willow: "So nice to get away from real life for a while." Real life, that's what she called me. I went to work because I needed the distraction. Nobody there knew it was my birthday yesterday. I didn't tell them. I just fixed what needed fixing, nodded through small talk, and drove home at sunset, feeling like a stranger in my own skin. That night, I opened a new bank account in my name only and rerouted my paycheck. Then I called Cody, an old friend from work who'd gone through a brutal divorce last year, and asked for his lawyer's contact. He didn't ask why. He just gave me the number and said quietly, "Do what you gotta do, man." The next 2 days passed in silence. No calls, no messages. Just more photos of them riding jet skis, eating seafood, singing karaoke. Every post a reminder that my family was somewhere warm and bright while I sat in this cold, dark house. On the third night, just as I was pouring myself another whiskey, my phone buzzed. A text from Piper. "Hey Dad, how's it going?" Like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just been erased from my own family. I didn't reply. An hour later, Thomas texted. "You didn't happen to see my laptop charger in my old room, did you?" Still nothing about my birthday. Still pretending everything was fine. I left that one unread too. By evening, the tone shifted. Willow. "Are you mad at us?" Then, "You could have come if you wanted, Norman. You always act like work's more important." It was around midnight when the real panic began. Missed calls, long messages, voicemail stacking up, her voice trembling, the kids chiming in, begging me to answer. I didn't. I just stared at my screen and thought, let them wonder. At 3:27 a.m., I counted 47 unread messages. I didn't delete them. I saved everyone. Because this wasn't silence anymore. This was the start of the reckoning. By the time dawn broke, my phone was still lighting up every few minutes. Missed calls, unread messages, and one pathetic email from Willow that just said, "Please, Norman, answer. We're worried." Worried. About what? That the husband they left behind might actually stop playing the part? I sat on the porch with my coffee, watching the neighborhood wake up, and felt something strange. Clarity. Not calm exactly, but focus. I'd spent half my life solving other people's problems, carrying the weight no one else wanted to deal with. Now, for once, I was going to treat this like what it was, a job. By noon, I printed out every screenshot, each one dated, labeled, and stacked neatly in a binder. Their photos, the bank withdrawals, the texts. I made copies of everything, and locked one set in my work safe. I didn't know yet where this was all going, but I wasn't going to let them gaslight me later. At 1:00 p.m., the first call came from Otis, my father-in-law. He didn't even start with concern. Just that deep, patronizing sigh he'd perfected years ago. "Norman, you're behaving like a child. Your wife is hysterical. You need to call her." I let him talk. Let him lecture me about family unity and how I was embarrassing Willow by ignoring her. When he finally paused for breath, I just said, "Otis, you took my wife and kids on a vacation on my 50th birthday without me. I think I've earned the right to be quiet for a bit." Then I hung up. The rest of that day was logistics. I changed my online passwords, locked my credit reports, removed Willow from my emergency contacts, called my lawyer, Laura, a sharp woman with a voice like cut glass, and told her everything. She didn't gasp, didn't pity me, just said, "We start by separating finances. Send me everything you've got." That night, the tone of Willow's messages shifted again, from pleading to angry. "This isn't fair, Norman. You're scaring the kids." "I didn't do anything wrong. You're overreacting." It was supposed to be a surprise. I almost laughed at that one. A surprise? For who? Then came one from Piper, a voice message, shaky and soft. "Dad, I'm sorry about your birthday. I didn't know it was supposed to be just us. Grandpa said it was a family reset trip, that you needed space." That hit different, because I could hear it. How guilty she sounded, how confused. My daughter caught in the middle of her mother's lies. I didn't respond, but I saved the message. By the third night, I'd made my decision. I drove to the hardware store before it closed, bought a new deadbolt and lock set, and installed them quietly under the porch light. I wasn't doing it to be cruel. I just needed boundaries. If they wanted to come home, they were going to have to ring the doorbell like guests. When the last screw clicked into place, I stepped back, wiped my hands, and looked at the door. That simple piece of metal gleamed under the porch light like a symbol. For 25 years, that door had always been open to them. Not anymore. They came home 3 days later. I knew the moment their Uber pulled into the driveway, gravel crunching, voices low and uncertain. I was standing in the hallway, every light off except one lamp, listening. Then the sound I'd been waiting for, the jingle of keys, the click of a lock that no longer worked, and a confused pause. The doorbell rang once, twice, then harder. I took my time answering. When I finally opened the door, there they were, sunburned, tired, and trying way too hard to look casual. Willow had her sunglasses pushed up on her head, holding a gift bag that I knew damn well wasn't meant for me 3 days ago. Thomas stood behind her, arms crossed, eyes darting everywhere but mine. Piper looked like she was on the verge of tears. And behind them, of course, were Otis and Kinsley, trying to play the part of calm mediators. "Norman," Willow started, voice shaky but fake sweet. "We were so worried. We came home early when you didn't answer any of us." I didn't say a word, just looked at her, then at Otis. His expression was already sour, like he couldn't believe he had to explain himself to me. "Now, son," he began, stepping forward. "This has gotten out of hand. The trip was supposed to be a surprise. We thought—" I cut him off. "You thought what? That excluding me from my own birthday was a surprise? That taking my wife and kids to a luxury resort I paid for was some kind of family gift?" Otis's face tightened. "You're overreacting." Behind him, Willow tried to reach for my arm, whispering, "Please, Norman, can we talk inside?" "Not all of us," I said. My eyes didn't leave Otis. "You can leave his luggage on the porch. He's not stepping foot in my house again." He actually laughed, a short, ugly sound. "You're out of your mind." "Maybe," I said, and closed the door halfway. "But it's my house, and my mind is the only one that matters here." He sputtered something about respect, but I shut the door in his face before he could finish. Inside, the silence felt sharp. Willow stood frozen. Thomas muttered something under his breath about me making a scene. Piper's hands trembled. I walked past them to the kitchen table and set down a thick manila folder. "Sit," I said. They did, reluctantly. One by one, I spread out the papers. Screenshots, statements, the credit card debt, the withdrawal logs. Even the text thread, between Willow and her sister, about not telling me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. The evidence spoke louder than anything I could have said. Willow's eyes darted across the pages, color draining from her face. "You went through my email?" "I went through the account you hid $113,000 in debt on," I said. "Don't act offended now." Thomas started pacing, muttering, "It wasn't supposed to go like this." Piper just cried. I leaned back, arms crossed, staring at the woman I'd built my life around. "Tell me, Willow," I said quietly. "When exactly did I become the man you could forget existed?" No one spoke. Outside, I could still hear Otis pacing on the porch, ranting into his phone. Inside, I realized this was no longer a marriage or a family or anything I recognized. And as Willow reached out to touch my arm, whispering, "Please, can we fix this?" I stepped away. "You broke something that doesn't get fixed," I said. "It gets replaced." That was the moment I knew revenge wasn't about yelling or breaking things. It was about precision, about watching people realize, too late, that they'd finally lost the quiet man who held everything together, and I wasn't done yet. That night after they unpacked what little dignity they had left, the house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like neutral territory. Every sound was tense. Willow moved around like a ghost, trying to pretend normalcy could be forced back into existence. Thomas slammed his bedroom door so many times it rattled the frame. Piper sat on the stairs, hugging her knees, eyes red, whispering, "I'm sorry, Dad," over and over. I didn't comfort her, not because I didn't care, but because I needed her to understand that sorry wasn't a magic reset button. Actions have weight. And that night, I wanted everyone in that house to feel just how heavy mine had become. I slept in the master bedroom. Willow stayed in the guest room. That was her choice. Though she pretended it was mine when she told the kids, "Dad needs space." I didn't argue. The next morning, I went about my routine like nothing happened. Coffee, work clothes, truck keys. But while I worked, my mind ran cold and steady. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to reclaim everything I'd built and make sure the people who'd mocked me for being real life finally saw what that meant. The first move was financial. I met with Laura, my lawyer, that afternoon. She went over everything: bank statements, the credit card, the resort charges. Her brow furrowed deeper with every page. "You've got her," she said finally. "You were the primary earner. The debt's in her name. She's on the hook. We'll file for separation first thing next week." Then she gave me advice I didn't expect. "Don't tell her yet. Let her think she still controls the story." And so I did. I came home early that night and found Willow on the phone, laughing softly. When she saw me, her voice dropped, sweet and shaky. "That was Kinsley. She thinks we can still fix this." "Maybe," I said. "We'll see." That's when she tried her old playbook. Tears, trembling voice, blaming Otis. "He said you needed a break. He convinced me it would be a good thing. Norman, I swear, I just wanted peace." "Peace?" I said, opening the fridge, keeping my back turned. "You mean silence. The kind where you don't have to hear my voice reminding you what real life costs." She didn't have an answer. Later that evening, I walked out to the garage, the one place that was still mine, and pulled out the box of old family photos: birthdays, graduations, holidays. The last one in the stack stopped me cold. Our 25th anniversary photo, the four of us smiling like a catalog family. I put it on the workbench and stared at it for a long time before taking a hammer and shattering the glass with one clean strike. The crack sounded sharp and final, like punctuation on a life sentence ending. That was my revenge beginning, not with fire, but with precision. The next morning, I called the credit card company again. This time, I requested a statement mailed to Willow's mother's address. I wanted Kinsley and Otis to see the totals, the debt, the evidence of their daughter's escape from real life. Let them choke on the numbers. By evening, Willow's phone was blowing up in the next room. I could hear Otis's muffled shouting through the walls. Willow screamed back, crying, begging him to stop. Then came the sound of her throwing something, the lamp, maybe. I just sat on the couch, sipping my whiskey, staring at the broken frame in the trash. For the first time in 25 years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen. The fallout came fast. By morning, Willow's peaceful facade had disintegrated completely. She came storming into the kitchen, eyes swollen from crying, hair unbrushed, still in the same clothes she'd slept in. "Did you send my credit card statements to my parents?" she demanded. Her voice cracked between rage and panic. I didn't even look up for my coffee. "I don't know, Willow. Maybe they finally decided to take a look at the reality they paid for." She slammed her palms on the counter hard enough to make the mugs rattle. "Do you have any idea what you've done? My father's furious. He said I embarrassed the whole family. He said, I don't care what Otis said," I cut in. "He can be furious in his own house. This one's mine." She just stood there, chest heaving, staring at me like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. Then she screamed, not words, just sound, and swept her arm across the counter, sending the coffee pot and half the breakfast dishes crashing to the floor. The sound echoed through the kitchen like gunfire. Piper came running down the stairs, pale, wide-eyed. "Mom, stop." Willow spun on her. "You stay out of this." Then she froze, realizing what she'd done, her voice trembling as Piper started crying and backed up the stairs. I knelt down, quietly started picking up the shards of glass. "This right here," I said, without looking up, "is what you built, Willow. A house full of broken things." She left that afternoon, muttering something about needing space, and went to stay with her sister Lindsay. I didn't stop her. I just changed the Wi-Fi password after she walked out. That night, Thomas came home. He must have gotten an earful from his mother because he came in hot, slamming the door, throwing his backpack down. "You're really proud of yourself, huh? You humiliated her in front of her family?" I took a slow breath. "She humiliated herself." "Bullshit," he snapped. "You've been acting like some kind of martyr for years, always playing the victim. Maybe if you weren't so cold." I stood up, not fast, not threatening, just enough that he stopped mid-sentence. "Thomas, you don't get to rewrite history, because it's easier than admitting your mother lied. You were there. You saw the posts. You laughed." His face flushed red, guilt flickering behind the anger. "It was a joke." I stepped closer, my voice low but steady. "Then you should have thought about how funny it'd be to spend your father's 50th birthday in a stranger's house because you don't have one left to come home to." He stared at me for a moment, then grabbed his keys and left. The door slammed so hard the frame cracked. Later that night, Piper came down with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She sat across from me, quiet for a while. Then she said, "Dad, you were right. Grandpa told Mom you were a burden. He said you'd stop her from living the life she deserved." It hit harder than I wanted it to. Not because it was new information, but because it was confirmation of what I'd already suspected. They'd been talking about me like I was dead weight. I looked at her, tried to smile. "You don't need to pick sides, kid. Just don't let them make you small to fit into their world." She nodded and went back upstairs. I stayed up until nearly 3 a.m., staring at the dark window reflection of myself, older, lined, unfamiliar. I'd spent decades working to give them comfort, and in return, they'd left me out in the cold. But here's the thing about cold: if you stay in it long enough, it stops hurting. It sharpens you instead. And I was just getting sharp. 2 days after Willow left for her sister's, the silence in the house changed. It wasn't tense anymore. It was clean, honest. For the first time in years, I could hear myself think without someone sighing or muttering about how negative I was. I made breakfast, fixed the loose hinge on the back door, did a full inventory of the garage. My life was turning into lists and clean surfaces, and I needed that structure. Then, around 6:15 that evening, the doorbell rang. I checked the camera. Otis. Standing there in his pressed polo, face red and tight, gripping his phone like a weapon. I opened the door just enough to make eye contact. "Norman," he said flatly. "We need to talk." "No, you need to leave," I said. He forced a laugh, stepping forward. "You think you can embarrass my daughter, send our private financial information around, and not face consequences?" "Consequences?" I said. "You mean accountability?" That hit him like a slap. His jaw clenched, and he pushed past me, straight into the kitchen, like he still owned the place. "You're being ridiculous. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family? Willow's a wreck." "She was a wreck long before I started telling the truth," I said, closing the door behind him. Otis pointed a shaking finger at me. "You ungrateful parasite. My money has held this family together for years." "No," I cut in, calm but sharp. "My paychecks held this family together. Your money paid for the poison, the vacations, the shopping, the fake image of perfection." His voice rose. "You'll regret this." I smiled then, not kindly. "You mean like I regretted giving up my 50th birthday to pay for your daughter's lies?" Something in his face snapped. He grabbed the nearest thing, one of Piper's framed school photos, and hurled it at the wall. Glass shattered across the tile. That was it. I didn't raise my voice, didn't move toward him. I just pointed to the door. "Get out!" For a moment, I thought he might hit me, but he didn't. He just spat on the floor and stormed out, muttering something about calling his lawyer. 10 minutes later, I got a text from Willow. "How could you talk to my father like that? He was only trying to help." I didn't answer. I just took a picture of the broken frame on the floor and sent it back with one line. "Seems like he fits right in." That night, Thomas showed up unannounced. His face was drawn, eyes rimmed red. "Mom's losing it," he said, voice shaking. "She's saying you're trying to ruin her life. She told Grandma you're dangerous." I leaned against the counter. Do you believe that?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "No, I saw the bank statements. I saw what she's done. I didn't want to." He sank into a chair and buried his face in his hands. The kid who once mocked me online for being a workaholic was finally realizing what work actually cost. We sat in silence for a long time, the kind that didn't need to be filled. By the next morning, Piper was back from staying at her aunt's. She hugged me for the first time in weeks and whispered, "I told Mom I'm staying here for a while." That evening, as the three of us, me, Thomas, and Piper, ate dinner together for the first time since this all began, the house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt mine. Willow texted 3 times that night, each message more frantic than the last. "We can fix this." I didn't mean for things to go so far. "Please, Norman, don't make me the villain." But the truth was already out there. She didn't have to play the villain anymore. She'd already become it. A week later, Willow came back to the house. She didn't call first. She just showed up, standing on the porch in a wrinkled sweater, eyes swollen from crying. The kids were both at work, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry when I saw her. I was just empty. She knocked softly, like she was afraid of the sound. "Norman, please, can we talk?" I opened the door but didn't invite her in. She took that as permission anyway, and stepped past me, glancing around the living room like she was searching for proof that I'd erased her. Maybe she noticed how clean everything was, how the family photos were gone except for one, the broken anniversary frame I'd left on the mantel as a reminder. "Thomas and Piper said you're cutting me off completely," she said. Her voice trembled, not from sadness this time, but fear. "You can't just abandon me like this." I folded my arms. "You abandoned me first, Willow." I just finally noticed. She sat down on the couch, clutching her purse. "It was one mistake. One stupid trip. I was trying to do something nice for everyone. I didn't mean to hurt you." I laughed, quiet and bitter. "You don't accidentally spend $6,000 at a beach resort while your husband eats leftovers alone on his birthday." She flinched, tears spilling over. "You're so cruel now. You used to care." "I used to care about someone who respected me," I said. "Turns out he's gone too." For a long time, she just sat there, sobbing quietly. When she finally looked up, her face was streaked with mascara and regret. "Is there any chance you could forgive me?" That word, forgive, hung between us like smoke. I thought about it for a long moment, then shook my head. "Forgiveness isn't something you get to ask for once you've lit the match. You don't rebuild trust out of ashes." She stood up slowly, shoulders slumped. "So this is it then?" "This is it." She hesitated at the door, looking back at me. "You'll regret this, Norman. You think you're winning, but you're going to end up alone." I didn't answer. I just held the door open until she finally stepped out into the cold. The next day, I met with Laura to sign the separation papers. It was quieter than I expected. No drama, no shouting. Just the scratch of pens and a sense of finality that felt almost peaceful. A month later, I moved the last of Willow's things to Lindsay's place. Piper helped. Thomas came by with takeout and an awkward smile, saying he'd started seeing a therapist, trying to figure his shit out. Progress. When the house was finally empty, I stood in the doorway for a long time. It didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt light. The kind of quiet that doesn't punish you, just holds you still long enough to breathe. I started swimming again, joined a hiking group, even went to a bar downtown once, alone, but not lonely. Every so often, I'd see a message from Willow on my phone, the same 3 words every time: I miss you. I never replied. Because what she missed wasn't me, it was the man she could take for granted. Now, when I sit on the back porch at night, drink in hand, I can finally feel the air move through the trees without that constant hum of resentment in my chest. 50 years old, and for the first time since I can remember, I'm living a life that actually belongs to me. They say revenge is best served cold, but mine wasn't about serving anything. It was about reclaiming what was already mine: my peace, my dignity, my name, Norman. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel and like it. You can also watch more shocking stories in the playlist.